So our society is predicated on the idea of rationality, right? We put information in, we process the information, and then there's output. Or we see a problem, we use rational thought to think about the problem, and then we implement. And sometimes it works like this, but a whole bunch of times it doesn't work like this. So if we take health, for example, okay, and then we go, here's my model of how I think I should eat, sleep, exercise in order to feel how I would like to feel for the rest of my life. And then we wrote down exactly what we do, there'd be a gap, right? And then if we did the same with relationships, this is how I would like to operate with my partner. This is how I actually operated over the last week. We would see a gap. We can do the same thing with our actions at work, right? We can say, well, I worry about things that I know don't need worrying about, and I procrastinate over things, and I put things off, or I do something that's easier on my to-do list rather than what's most important. And we know that we do those things, right? There's a gap. So the idea of rationality, when we use the notion of I am rational and the world is rational, to look at that perspective, the only conclusion we can draw is that we're faulty in some way, right? I'm not good enough. Then if we turn that around and project it into the way that we lead, then we go, well, I give this person information, they take that information and they go off and run with it. Or I give them a problem, they look at that problem with rationality and then they implement the solution. That's what we expect, right? And then when we don't do those things, we're left to draw conclusions based on that original rational model. So we're left with the idea that they're incompetent, they're lazy, they're ignorant, they're out to get me, they're only out for themselves, they don't want it enough, and a whole bunch of other things, right, that if we really sit with, we kind of know aren't really true. But based on this idea of rationality, it only leads to one way of leading. We have to instruct, we have to micromanage, we have to control everything, we have to be the smartest person in the room, we have to really drive and motivate, because these people are lazy and incompetent and ignorant and all of those things that the notion of rational thought means they have to be, okay? And we know that this is a false idea, but it comes from that original idea. We believe that what we do is we see objects and then we work out how to navigate through those objects. But actually, it turns out, we've learned from neuroscience some time ago that actually we see meaning. We see meaning in everything that's around us based on associations from the past. So what that means is one person can see diet and see success and opportunity to feel great and the things that they really want to eat and supporting the way that they want to feel. And another person can see failure because they've tried to eat in this certain way and it hasn't worked, and they get that rational idea of, or predicated from the rational idea, I'm not good enough, right? They get that feedback. And this happens in absolutely every single area of life. So when we aren't moving effortlessly in the direction that we want to be moving, there is a meaning that we're taking from the environment that gets in the way, right? So what do we do about that? Well, firstly, we need to lose the idea of rationality, because we now know that we don't see objects and just move towards where we want to go to with willpower, effort, drive, and motivation. What we now know is that we need to look at the meaning that we're extracting from the environment. So if we can take that out, right, and we take out the spider that was the threat in our path, and then we can look at it and go, okay, what's the meaning I'm taking from this? Where does that actually come from? And can I test that belief? Can I test that notion? And then what's the smallest step I can take towards moving through that obstacle? And there are many, many different ways that we can approach this. But the first thing we have to do is realize that we see meaning. And so we need to extract meaning if we aren't moving naturally in the direction that we want to go in. And if our teams aren't moving naturally in the way they want to go in, it's not because they're ignorant or incompetent or lazy or out to get us or poorly motivated or don't have enough willpower or any of those things. And the same's true for you, right? It's not that you're not good enough. It's not that there's something wrong with you. It's that the model of the world that the lens that you're looking through is the idea that we're rational. We're not. We see meaning. The meaning lives in the past. When we can take out that meaning and play with it, we can lose things like imposter syndrome and negative self-judgment, and we can start moving naturally in the direction we want to go with far, far, far less effort. It's not to say that willpower isn't useful, and it's not to say that skill and knowledge and all of those things aren't really, really useful things. It is to say that if you're not moving effortlessly in the direction that you want to go in, it is because of the meaning that your brain associates from the past. And so if you don't pull that forward and look at it and change it, then it's always going to remain an obstacle, regardless of how much willpower or effort you try and put into it. So that's what I do. I help people and organizations to learn this new way of thinking. It's not really a new way of thinking. It's just the truth as we know it at the moment. Obviously, the brain is incredibly complex and there's so much more to learn, and we may never learn it. But we do know that we see meaning, and meaning can be far more of an obstacle than an object. Okay, I hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.